Hello and welcome to Let's Collaborate, a podcast from the Southwest Doctoral Training Partnership. I'm your host, Chris Garrington. Joining me for this episode, recorded at the Collaboration and Connectivity Conference, is Felipe Neves, who's researching gold mining in the Amazon, and he's based at the University of Bath. So Felipe, welcome. Tell us about your research.
Thanks for having me. So my research entails the feasibility of turning artisanal gold mining in the Amazon basin into a sustainable practice that will provide livelihoods and jobs for local communities. How does that impact what's the environmental impact and social impacts of the practice, and how much you can thrive towards turning to, like I said, a sustainable practice or less unsustainable, because I don't think any extractive industry can be sustainable by its nature.
So tell us a bit about the background to this, maybe a bit more of the context.
Okay, so artisanal gold mining is a big thing in the Amazon. It's driven by certain factors such as the political moment that we live in Brazil with the Bolsonaro government, which is going to be, he's got his days numbered. Thank God to that. So he's going to be out of the office by the end of the year. But in the last 4 years of his tenure, a lot of damage has been done. His rhetoric is one of the factors that push people towards artisanal gold mining. But also political factors such as the laxing legislation, also to do with his tenure, but high unemployment. And it involves a lot, we're looking at a conservative number, perhaps 160,000 gold miners themselves, as well as apart from all the other working sectors that evolve around the mining, like such as transportation, the logistics, prostitution. So all those issues, it has a very negative social impact. It creates violence towards the indigenous in traditional communities in the forest. It has a very negative environmental impact with mercury contamination of rivers, soil erosion. 50% of Brazil's greenhouse emissions comes from deforestation, and another 20% comes from livestock. From rearing cattle, basically, or feed for cattle. So that's you're looking at 70% of greenhouses emissions coming from either deforestation or livestock. A lot of it is concentrated in the Amazon basin. So my research is aimed at looking at that from a human-centered approach, from a historical materialist approach, and how we can't just forbid it. We're not going to abolish gold mining. We're not going to. That's not the way we look at it. But how can we turn that? How can we perhaps look at local needs and take that paradigm of a bottom-up approach, talking open dialogues with the miners, and how can perhaps retrain them to other industries, sustainable industries.
Yeah, you're right. It's not a case, is it, of just sort of banning it and stopping it. These are people's livelihoods. These are real people's lives that we're talking about. So how are you going about that? I mean, are we talking travel out to the Amazon to speak with these people? How are you having those conversations? How are you getting that information? How are you getting those dialogues going?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all very well to do all the literature research, but then yes, field work is compulsory in a kind of a sphere. So I'm planning to go to Brazil, which is my home country. I'm from Brazil, so I am planning on conducting some semi-structured interviews with the gold miners and with the other set of stakeholders like NGO workers. There's a lot of really good people conducting really good work in the field. So I plan to interview them as well as the indigenous, take their perspective as well. And so perhaps some ethnographical work as well. So that will be for next year. And I am looking forward to it.
I imagine you are. Challenging, but very, very exciting. So tell me, Felipe, what new insights are you hoping that your PhD will provide, and how do you hope that what you're going to do might benefit those people that you were talking about, that you're going to be speaking with?
Sure. So I think that the kind of the novelty, the key, the gap in literature, if you like, I'm trying to fill here, is to take the perspective of the gold miners themselves. Gold mining is a horrible activity for everybody, and if you think about we we already know the indigenous standpoint. We already know what the NGOs have to say. There's a lot of papers, a lot of research being conducted in the natural science sphere, pointing out the vast devastation of the Amazon and the mercury contamination, which influences the local communities, but also the wider community. Everybody who eats fish will be a little bit contaminated by mercury. But there's very little research being done in the perspective of the gold miners themselves, which are the people who are, say, the first one to be contaminated by mercury, because they're the ones handling it. And the hypothesis, if you like, is that they do that because they have no other choice. So I like to go and talk to these people and observe and perhaps take their perspective into account, not just into account, but as a center stage of the research, and create some sort of alternative to their livelihoods, but coming from them, But as the first speaker of this conference was talking about participatory research. That's the approach.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic way to go about it. It would seem really involving those people who are most affected, right, by these things. So I'm just going to sort of finish off our chat here by asking you. It's early days in your PhD, but I wonder if, in terms of what you've learned already, if there's any advice that you would give anybody who's thinking of embarking on a PhD. I mean, yours sounds an incredible amount of work and a lot of organisation to achieve these things. So what's your top tip, as it were?
My top tip is do something that you're passionate about. Ideally, something that is transformational, something that you can, it's overall to do research to stay within academia. But I see perhaps a weakness in the connection, the bridge between academia and society. So I recommend something that you're very passionate about, because you're going to be research, you're going to be immersed in it for 4 years, if not more. There's something that you're really keen to, a problem that you're really keen to solve.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Let's Collaborate from the Southwest Doctoral Training Partnership. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts to access earlier and new episodes.